Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in adult transgender care. Welcome to my channel. If it's your first time here or not your first time here, but you have not had a chance to yet subscribe, please make sure you do subscribe. This way you're helping so many other people find this content. If you don't yet follow me on Instagram, please do follow, link is below. That's where I show up daily with amazingly supporting, uplifting content for all of you, and I would love for all of us to connect. Having said that, for today's video, I would like to give you some guidance and tips on how to navigate your relationships, if you are in a relationship, in a marriage, in a long-term partnership, and what to do when your partner does not want you to go through transition. What to do when your partner is not supportive of you wanting to go through gender transition. This is something that comes up all of the time. A lot of you are in relationships. A lot of you find out, or as I often say, your egg cracks when you are in the midst of relationships. A lot of you do have established families, partnerships, and it becomes really challenging and can be very, very difficult to navigate these waters of relationship. And as I always say, one of the biggest challenges that I think trans adults do experience versus younger trans individuals is that by the time you do, not even by the time, but for a lot of you who do, let me put it this way, for a lot of you who do realize later in life, the biggest challenge is that you have built ecosystems. You have careers, you have work, you have kids, you have partners, and so it becomes that much more challenging to navigate all those waters because there's that many things in place that may go through changes and through shifts. So what do you do when you are in a relationship and you come out to your partner and you disclose to your partner that you're trans? And in this case, your partner may even be fine with you being transgender. And yet, one thing that they're absolutely against is you going through gender transition. And so they're just not supportive toward that end at all. They're not supportive about you exploring it. They may be not supportive about you considering hormones. They're definitely not supportive for you to consider any surgeries. What do you do in that case? Oftentimes I see partners almost issuing an ultimatum. If you go through gender transition, relationship, marriage, partnership is going to be completely over. I am going to leave you if you are going to go through this. It is a complete and utter ultimatum. In my professional opinion, ultimatums never, ever work. They may appear or come across as if they are working, but they really are not working, because inevitably what happens is that the person who is struggling with dysphoria starts to accumulate and starts to carry tremendous amount of resentment, which inevitably becomes contempt towards that partner. Because at some point in the beginning, you may be fine, or not fine, but you may be at least, you may at least accept to a certain extent the ultimatum, because so many of you struggle with deeper parts inside of you that are terrified of abandonment, terrified that if your partner leaves, nobody will ever love you, that you will end up all alone. And on top of that, a trans person going through transition, that just adds a whole other challenges to your forefront. And as a result, a lot of you are scared, and a lot of you think this partner, this person you're with, is it. And the other option is that you're going to be completely and utterly alone, which is, by the way, is not true. It is not true. And so a lot of you in the beginning accept, I'm putting it in a quotation because it's really not acceptance, this idea of ultimatum, and you stay in a relationship, but inevitably you start feeling contempt and resentment because you're suffering and struggling, and that's just not a way to go. Eventually your sense of I am worthy, your sense of I deserve better, I deserve to be happy, eventually always kicks in. So in my opinion, ultimatums doesn't work. And if you're in a relationship where a partner gives you a very rigid ultimatum, I really encourage you to think about it. I have never seen ultimatum to work. They're not meant to work. That's the whole thing. Now, what if you are? But what do you do, right? What can you do if you're in a relationship and you don't want to relive it? You may love your partner. You may genuinely want to stay and work on a relationship, and yet your partner is not supportive of your transition. For starters, it's um, very important for you and your partner to be very mindful of each other, because transition does affect not only you but them and the whole scope of the union. So it's really important for you to also equally acknowledge that your partner is readjusting and readapting to this news about your identity, and not only news about your identity but about what that may entail and what does it mean for the whole relationship. A lot of times trans people that I work with tell me, well, I don't understand, I haven't changed, I'm still the same person, so why suddenly it's such a big deal? Well, you know what, that's really not fair, and that's very reductionistic, because there's a lot about all of you that does change. In the very least, your gender identity, and if you are planning to go through gender transition, the way you present, even your body's going to change, whether you're gonna have surgeries or not. Even on hormones alone, your body's going to change. So you're not the same person. And we have to acknowledge that as individuals, as people, when we make choices whom to marry, gender plays a significant part in it. It absolutely does. To not acknowledge that is, to me, it's almost like borderline delusional, because it does play a part. It does. Unless you're completely agender, and unless you were both maybe also pansexual. But for majority of the people, gender plays a very, very big role. Not only gender plays role in sexual desires and attractions for majority of people, but it also plays a role in dynamics, and which dynamics, relation-wise, people feel more comfortable with, people feel more attuned to. So let's all be honest and say that, yeah, there's a lot of things about all of you that is changing, and as it is changing, it's going to be changing for your partner. And that's what your partner has to figure out, whether the changes that you presumably might go through are going to be okay with them, if they're going to be comfortable with those changes. The challenge is that majority of the partners don't know that from the beginning. The challenge is that majority of the partners strongly believe from the beginning that they're not going to be okay with it. And in my personal experience, I have seen where it started off with, I'm not going to be okay with it. And as things moved slowly, and as people worked in a couple therapy on their issues, as I worked with the couples through their gender transition, a lot of times partners find it's not even adjustment, it's not even habituation to the new you. It's that they find a doorway into your identity that they fall in love with. And that's how relationship sustain, and that's how relationship maintain their course. But for that to happen, the two people have to work on things together. Unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is that the person who wants to transition has been carrying a very, very, very heavy load of dysphoria for decades. So imagine this is you, and you are living a life, and you are carrying this very heavy backpack filled with rocks, and rocks symbolizing dysphoria. So you've been living your life, navigating your life, going to places, constantly having this heavy load on your shoulders. Imagine going to places where you're meant to enjoy and have fun and just have happiness in. Going to amusement park, going to family gatherings, going to a musical concert, places where you were meant to just let yourself loose and, like I said, have bliss. And you weren't fully able to because you constantly were reminded of what you were had to carry. So you're carrying this heavy backpack dysphoria for decades and decades and decades. And now suddenly you realize you need to do something about it and you decided to put it down. The putting down your backpack is symbolized by you accepting or coming out to yourself and then coming out to your partner. So now you took off your backpack. Imagine this. Imagine the amount of liberation and freedom and that you feel. I know that a lot of you felt that. It is incredible, that feeling. And now imagine that your partner is the one who's picking up that backpack and starting to carry it. Because now your partner feels like something heavy has been handed to them. Something heavy and incomprehensible to them, and maybe even beyond themselves for them to sort through and to understand. So it's not that the partner now has dysphoria, no, but now your heavy load that you have unburdened now has become a heavy load for them to address and be part of too, because now they became aware of it. I always, when I work with couples, I always tell them, and if you worked with me, you know, I told you this. For your partner, for you, it's like you just took off this heavy load. For your partner, it's just like they just put on this heavy load. So, because you just unloaded yourself, there is going to be a strong desire and a need to do something now. And there is going to be an impulsivity to it. There is going to be that need of, if I don't do it now, I'm going to regret. I cannot waste another day. I cannot waste another minute. I have got to do something about my dysphoria now. But your partner is not ready for you to take immediate action. And so your partner putting brakes on the whole thing is your partner being triggered into reacting in a very non-supportive manner, or in a way where they say, I'm not ready, or not now. Can we just slow things down? So this is unfortunately the dynamics that gets reenacted. You want things now. Your partner wants time to process. They don't go hand in hand. Because of that, I see people make a mistake where a partner who unloaded moves forward too fast, doesn't allow the partner time to process or to make sense of it, or to find the doorway into a newly developed relationship. And as a result, this partner backs off even more in the corner and upholds their boundary, which they feel is something that's protecting them, of, if you do something, I'm leaving. If you do something, I'm leaving, which then ends up being ultimatum. The more they uphold their boundary, the more suffocated you feel, because now you feel like you need to get out even more. So these dynamics, they're almost very self-destructive to each other. This is unfortunately the dynamic that gets reenacted and destroys things. The key is, how can you cultivate compassion for your partner? How can your partner cultivate compassion for you? How can both of you find a way to open dialogue, to reciprocity of what can you do right now? How can your partner hear how painful it is for you to maintain in the state and meet you halfway? Maybe just starting low dose hormones. How can you hear your partner and how overwhelming and challenging it is for them, and meet your partner halfway by maybe slowing down your process? Now, I want to be very careful and say that it doesn't mean that you have to put your transition goals or your plans on a shelf for years and years and years until your partner catches up. You do need to decide in discussion with a partner what is reasonable. What is reasonable? In my professional opinion, if you came out to your partner and it's been 6 months to 12 months and you've been moving super slowly toward your authentic gender, maybe by socially expressing yourself a little more, maybe starting low dose hormones, maybe just starting slow hair removal or other little things, right? Nothing drastic, right? You're not fully out yet, maybe you're not fully expressing yourself, just little things. And your partner is still pushing against every little step, that is something to discuss, because they're not meeting you anywhere halfway. So you have to ask yourself, what is a reasonable timeline? Because you two exist in a relationship. If you're by yourself and you decide to transition and you decide to go through the whole thing in 6 months to a year to 18 months, that is your choice, and that is up to you, and nothing is holding you. Go for it. But the minute we are in a relationship, in a partnership, there is a responsibility and an obligation to each other. Otherwise, why are we with somebody, right? Why are we with this person? You are a unit. And as a unit, you need to be able to communicate as one. Again, otherwise, why be with somebody? It's just like, you don't make huge financial decisions in a relationship. I hope not, right? You don't decide, people in relationships don't suddenly decide to get pregnant, I hope not, without discussion. So any big changes always exist within the unity of relationship. These are not small matters. This is not me deciding to go and do whatever I want with my haircut and not asking my husband, which I do because I do what I want to do with my hair. It's my individuality. But if I wanted to decide to pack up and move out of state to a different state or to a different country, yes, I have to talk to him about it. So the minute you exist in a relationship, decisions have to arise out of that container. You have to remember that. Here's my tips on things in relationship that I don't agree with. You don't have to agree with it. You may disagree with it. All valid. This is my personal from experience working with so many couples. If you came out to your partner and your partner continues to be rigidly unsupportive for a long period of time, I challenge you to ask yourself, do I want to invest my time and energy in a relationship where I am with a person who is dismissing my need for well-being and my need for my health? That's something for you to ask yourself. When I work with couples, I ask them that. When I work with the partners who been together, they came out, it's been a while and the partner is still not receptive, I ask my client, do you want to be in a relationship with somebody who completely dismisses your health? Who sees your pain and suffering and struggle and makes a choice at that point to maintain their comfort level? Oh, don't make me so uncomfortable if you're going to transition. If you want to, that's fine. Be honest with yourself. But then don't blame your partner. Please do not blame your partners for holding you hostage, because you're holding yourself hostage in a relationship. You always have a choice. Even though it might not be the ideal choice, it might not be optimal choice, it may not be the choice you want, but you do have a choice to live a relationship. You do. You always do. Might not be easy, but it is there. So if you're going to make a choice to stay in a relationship, then we cannot blame the partners. Okay, we have to take accountability where accountability is due. It's only fair. I hear a lot of people say, I'm sacrificing. If you've been watching this channel long enough, you know that I'm not a fan of sacrificing. Because in my opinion, you're not sacrificing anything. You're only further digging a very deep, very dark hole towards diminishing health and well-being and just your overall lifespan. And it's not worth it to me. Okay? It's not this I'm sacrificing mentality is sacrificing for what? For whom? For your partner? I hear this all the time. I'm sacrificing. What does it even mean? How can you sacrifice if every day you're getting worse? If every day, even if you're saying I'm sacrificing for my kids, right? You have to acknowledge to what extent dysphoria is affecting you negatively, where you can't fully be present for the kids, where you can't fully be there for the kids. So I personally don't get sacrifice. Again, this is me. If you get it, it works for you, do what works for you. But I think sacrifice is another self-induced masochistic way of enduring pain and sitting in kind of a wrapped up victim narrative that none of you deserve to sit in, because you're so much better than that. And you deserve happiness, and you deserve to live a happy life. And I've seen it. I've done this work. Look, I have done this again and again and again and again with thousands of people. I don't say this lightly to put up fire up your asses. I say this because I see this. Yes, marriages end. Yes, people are heartbroken. Yes, people sometimes have to make a decision to leave partners they deeply love in order to deeply love themselves. Yes, people do all of that. And guess what happens? They find joy, they find happiness, they find other partners. In the very least, they find themselves, and they have healthy, happy relationship with themselves. Okay? So, my biggest tip, if your partner is not supportive, is to find a way to start having a dialogue. Again, you are a unit. If your partner completely against talking about it, again, you have to ask yourself, do I want to be in a relationship where somebody is not even open to communicate with me? I've seen couples that moved things very slowly, but they were moving together toward a mutual goal. And they would stop and reassess. I've seen couples where one partner said, you know what, I understand this is important to you, and I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with this. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have to be honest with you to express to you what is enough for me, what is too much for me. And I've seen partners who were able to acknowledge, and that's how they lived. But it has to be an open communication. It has to be an open dialogue, an open conversation. It doesn't work unless those things are in place. It just doesn't. And yes, I've seen couples make it through the whole transition and thrive and be happy and live together. I see that all the time. Does it happen every single time? No. But you know what I see? I see this again and again. By the time a person comes and works with me because they want to start gender transition and they're in a relationship, there's a very high chance, unfortunately, that by that time the relationship has already corroded. And a lot of times people just don't want to acknowledge that. But living years and years with dysphoria, and living a lot of times in dissociative states, and living in a place where you're not fully yourself, does one way or another stifle a relationship. We're just bound to. So unfortunately, I also see a lot of relationships that by the time a partner decides to transition, there's a lot of erosion, and just people don't want to acknowledge that there has been a lot of erosion. We tend to cling to things versus being okay with change, being okay with letting things go. And I think that's unfortunately the mistakes that we make. But if you ever worked with me, you know that I am very vocal at calling out accountability, and I don't personally sit well when people say, you know, I'm sacrificing for my partner, or I'm not a fan of a narrative of I wish I could do it, but I can't do it because my partner said no. That's a very victim mentality. And I don't believe in it. And I mean, yes, it exists. It definitely exists. But I know that all of you are better than that. And I know that It's not your partners oftentimes that are holding you in that position, but you yourself. So it's a little bit like, uh, you know, how should I say it? Tender loving care type of video today, but sometimes we just need to hear things the way they are. Comment below if you were in a relationship that had a strong rigid ultimatum. How did that work out for you? Comment below if your partner after some time never ever shifted or changed. What did you do? What did you do? Comment below if you decided to take your partner's firm no, and did you ended up cultivating resentmentfulness and contempt. Comment below if you're in a place right now where you can actually accept accountability and acknowledge, even in the comment section, that you are making a choice to stay in a position that you are because you may be afraid to leave that position. And I personally will take acknowledgement over ourselves telling lies to ourselves, okay? Because it's not. Somebody wrote me a message on Instagram, and they shared that it was so heartbreaking. It broke my heart. They shared that they had they started hormones and they felt so much better on hormones. They never felt so much happiness enjoying their life, and then they had to stop the hormones because their partner was not okay with their transition, and now they don't feel so alive and so happy. And I asked them, I commented back and I asked them and I said, so does it mean that you're now dead, like internally dead, but not alone? And they said, yeah. And I told this person, I said, please don't get offended. I'm not judging you by any means. I just want to point out, right? So one thing is you could have been happy, but alone, because your partner would not be there. But now you're dead, but you're not alone. We'll make choices. We'll make choices all the time. I'm not here to judge anybody's choices, but I'm here to point out that we have to own our choices. And it's okay to own our choices versus hiding underneath facade of somebody makes us do something when we are doing those things onto ourselves. So hopefully you take all of this with lots of love, giving all of you in those positions very big hug. I know it is incredibly difficult to be in a situation where you are in a relationship and you're coming out in a scope of relationship. Don't forget, I do have a 7-part partner series in a playlist and on my website for partners to watch if that might be helpful to them. Wishing you all of the best, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.